Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Islam Channel's new show, Health is Wealth. We hope to bring you plenty of advice and tips on how to keep healthy and fit during the month of Ramadan. I'll be inviting guest healthcare professionals who will be giving you expert and most current advice on how to keep healthy. In addition to this, we also will have a fitness segment at the end of each episode where we will have a qualified personal trainer who will show you easy exercises on how to keep healthy and fit in the comfort of your own home. With me today, I have Ben Wilson, who is both a personal trainer and a nutritionist, and also an author of a book called Change Your Thinking, Change Your Shape. Welcome to the show, Ben.
Thank you for having me.
I'd also like the viewers to know that Ben has actually, for the past, is it 5 years?
3 years.
3 years, has been observing fast during the month of Ramadan. You do the first 5, is that correct?
5-6 days roughly, just for the...
So what's actually prompted you to do this?
Well, having been a personal trainer nutritionist, one of my clients was Muslim, and he said he was starting Ramadan tomorrow, and I thought, tell me a bit more. He told me the details, and I thought, I want to give this a try. So I joined in with him, and it was definitely one of the best nutritional experiences I think I've been through. The first fast 3 years ago was roughly 4 a.m. to 9:15, something like that. So
wow,
just a great experience to, go through such a long fasting period, because I've never done it obviously in my life.
So any reflections you'd like to share with us based on your fasting?
Yeah, I thought it was really powerful, and I use a sort of a watered down version with my clients now. Obviously, especially this time of year, the fast is pretty extreme, over 18 hours and so forth. But the general principle of what it does, it forces you to break your connections, and it also forces you to get reconnected to hunger and thirst. And what you begin to realize is a lot of your hungers are obviously a little bit made up in the head, because, I remember being there 11 a.m. thinking, God, I'm thirsty and hungry, how long I've got? And I'm like, oh, 10 hours. And then before you know it, 15 minutes later, that hunger's gone. So when you come out of Ramadan, it's a lot easier, with food cravings, controlling, your diet and therefore. So I try and use the same principles with my clients. So trying to get them obviously in a much shorter and safer way to do, say, just 8 hours, because then it's still a challenge. They've had to go through work, resist the cravings, resist the eating, resist the drinking, and then at the end of it, they're a lot tougher mentally, which I think is a real big benefit to have if your main goal is to lose weight, which most of my clients, that's their main sort of goal.
Oh, that's fantastic. So like with your nutritionist's hat on then, what sort of advice do you have for the kind of foods we should be eating when we break our fast?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Obviously this year, or this next few years, with such a short window, 5.5 hours, 5 hours 40, you've got to be quite careful with your foods, because some of the traditional advice of saying, just eat vegetables for healthy nutrients, what you've got to remember is vegetables have got almost, very low energy, which is great, to stop you overeating during the day. But when you've got a tiny window to eat, that can bring its own sort of problems. So in this sense, it's more looking for making sure your food's got nutrients in it. So it'd be better to have fruit juice over vegetable juice. You wouldn't want to have just a big pile of vegetables, because you're going to be taking like 80 calories, another 100 calories is 5 hours later, and then you're fasting again. So for now, it's actually making sure the clients, get enough food in at those sort of meals. You see what I'm saying? So more foodie based things, rices, pastas and so forth, with other, edits based on the person.
Okay, so would you like to sort of expand a little bit more on that? Because I know you've mentioned the food groups, but maybe the sort of exact types of foods that we should be eating.
Well, the ideal way to maximize your energy resources is to get a meal with protein, carbohydrates and fat within the same meal. So, if you're going to eat meat, then you obviously meat and a rice-based thing. You obviously need your micronutrients in there too, which basically comes with vitamins and minerals. But again, you just be careful that going vegetable crazy and taking not enough food in, and then you get, more stronger hungers, more craving in that sense. And it's a similar relation when it comes to water and thirst, because you drink 2 pints of water, your stomach's now full, you're going to have trouble getting more food in that tiny sort of window, do you see? So in that respect, then if you've got liquids which are giving you food, fruit juices, vegetable juices for the micronutrients, and then you come back to your basic thing of protein, carbs to fat, where protein is basically in meat or an animal source, carbohydrates, rice, beans, so forth, and then fat will normally be within a protein source, or you can add in nuts, for example, to get that calorie content higher.
Okay, that's great advice. But the problem is a lot of us, we indulge in a South Asian diet. So how practical are these measures for those of us who have South Asian diets?
It's an interesting call. Obviously, there's a couple sides of the fence with Ramadan. Now, what a lot of people do is they become very sedentary. When I run my experiments, because, I'm not so constrained, if I mess up one of my experiments, when I'm Ramadaning, I could always eat, you know what I mean? So I would keep my active levels as high as I would normally. What a lot of people do is they shut down. So, if your goal is to lose body fat, it can be a little bit dangerous during Ramadan, but you can go the other way, where you gain body fat by going too crazy on a Southeast Asian diet. So I think for a lot of portion, it's about portion size is probably the main controlled issue, because what a lot of people do is they take, and if you can monitor your movement basically in life. Have you ever seen these wristometers? They monitor how much you've walked in a day.
Oh yeah, they're very handy.
Your iPhone app has the same
Yes.
thing. So there's different ways to do it. Pedometer, basically, you can see your movement, and obviously, I see from my clients Ramadan movements, it comes down to like almost zero, and then your food comes down to almost, it comes quite low, and then obviously when your fast breaks, you can end up eating huge meals, and this is why I've known clients who have gained body fat during Ramadan despite the length of the fast. You see what I'm saying? So I don't think it's so much issue with the Southeast Asian diet, but it's more about quantity, size.
Yeah.
Am I having too much? And obviously being aware of what I just said recently about you can go too far the other way, where you can eat too little in that sense, and that's some of the risk we have when the window is so short as it is in this Ramadan period.
So I really enjoy my fried foods during Ramadan, as I'm sure some of our viewers do as well. So what advice do you have for us? The samosas and the pakoras, can we continue eating those, or?
I think it's very much about balance, do you know what I'm saying? So you're trying to think, let me look at my meal with a bit of common sense here. If it's 10, 20% bad stuff, that's not really going to be the end of the world. Or maybe in a fast you need to go up to 30% to keep you sane mentally. Yeah. But obviously I think a lot of people go the other way, and they go a little bit mental when the food is broken. You see what I mean? So you eat like 5 of them while you're waiting. You eat this, you eat some nuts, and then you look at what's happened nutritionally. You've eaten way too much in that sense. So I don't think it's about going 100% restrictive unless that's something that feels suitable to yourself. I think it's just being sensible. When it comes to like health in general, when you give yourself permission to be bad, then most people don't actually want to be as bad as they think they are. But what happens is you sort of restrict yourself. Tomorrow I'll sort it out, and then you eat 100 today. You know what I mean? Yeah, in the preparing things. So I think when you have common sense and just permission a bit more relaxed, you can normally have a bit. So it's not about going too extreme, but it is about thinking, hey, am I being sensible here in this plate?
So the key here is balance, really. Balance yourself.
Yeah. Which comes back to the mind, but also certain foods, everyone's got trigger foods, and when you have one, you sort of have 100 of them, or you keep craving them. So some people have one bit of chocolate, then they have the whole bar. They have one biscuit, and that's the whole packet gone.
Right, yeah.
Sometimes it's better to pick another bad food that doesn't have quite the same trigger reaction. So the classic one would be like, if you have one packet of crisps, you might only have one packet of crisps. If you have one chocolate bar, you have 6 in the end. It's obvious, pick the packet of crisps, even though none of those are like the most magical healthy food you'll ever get. Yeah. But that's just a common sense thing. And then it's also just trying to get back in touch, talk about Ramadan, reconnecting you to hunger, reconnecting you to thirst. Yeah. It's the same with taste. The more you eat bad foods, guess what you crave? The more you crave bad foods. So, people could use this, month as an opportunity to say, no, let me try healthier foods, fruits, and, and it's re-getting in touch with those tastes of healthier, cleaner foods, and you can retrain your palate, and it can go both directions. You can untrain it, or you can retrain it.
Absolutely.
Based on where you're at.
Yeah, that's great advice. The other thing I'd like to ask you is when we have our suhoor, so just before it's sunrise.
Yeah.
What kind of food should we eat then? Because obviously we've got to cope throughout the whole day. Some of us are working. So what kind of sort of slow release energy foods should we be indulging in?
It's the same sort of thing that obviously with such a short window now, 5.5 hours, you've got to get basically 2 meals in quite quickly. And obviously, when I was up at 2:30 in the morning, you're not that enamored to do. So liquids can be a form to get food in, but you're right, you've got to get your food. You need to get protein, ideally of some sort. You need to get carbohydrates especially, and you need some fat to mediate it all through. So, things like juices, they can work quickly at that time of the morning. Personally, I was using yogurts because they were high calorie, but not huge quantities, because I didn't, really have the stomach, because you've only eaten 4 or 5 hours before. So you're not really, so it was trying to come to more high calorific food. It's a little bit the opposite of what traditional weight loss advice would be, to say eat high vegetables. It comes more the opposite side, what's quite dense. And then just experimenting. There's a huge difference in calories. So I get this with clients. You can have the same calorie diet, 1,500 calories, and if you change how much protein, carbs, the fat is in the diet, you can be massively content, or you can be really hungry on exactly the same diet. So for you to experiment, you might do better with more meat in your diet. I might do better with less meat, more carbohydrates. And when you get your ratio right, you can see what's what. So most people don't need to invent the meal. They can just go back and go, oh yeah, when I did have 2 eggs at 3 in the morning, 2 in the morning, I felt a lot contented that day than when I didn't. And it's running those experiments, and your body will give you a lot of data and feedback if you're prepared to listen to it.
You've given us some great advice today, Ben, but one thing I'd like to ask in particular, this Ramadan has been very challenging with the heat, most of us commuting into work. So do you have any advice on how we can conserve our energy during the day? Because I mean, definitely on my part, by the time I've come home, I'm exhausted. I'm ready to crash.
Yeah, most definitely. Obviously, the base of it comes make sure you're fueling yourself. As we talked about already, if you're way under eating, you're going to be in trouble in that sense. Then, obviously, with the weather as it is right now, if it's really hot, you want to count movements to later in the day and so forth. But I think a little bit of energy, it's a bit of a catch-22. The more you move, the more energized you get, and vice versa. The less you move, the less energized you get. Now, it's definitely not a good idea to go do a crazy midday exercise session. But you're surprised by going for a walk, how it does generate a bit of movement within the body. And it should be on. Now, if it is the hottest day of the year, maybe not the best idea. But I know when I was doing Ramadan, I didn't, back off my movement at all. So one day I walked 25 kilometers, with clients, the dog and so forth. And the body's quite adaptable. Do you know what I'm saying? You sometimes underestimate what it can do.
Yeah.
I wouldn't suggest anybody start an exercise routine during Ramadan. It's not the time to do it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily mean you have to go to bed the moment you get home from the thing. Because when you move more, you get more energized, and then it's seen. But again, it's been sensible. I think a bit like with food, the common sense will give you the ideas. And obviously, if you can avoid really hot environments, it does help. The rush hour tube, that's not really help. Having a hot bath, I did that by mistake once. That was a bad idea. So trying to avoid those sort of things.
Yeah, that is actually really good advice, because I do avoid the rush hour times, both in the morning and in the evening as well. And that has actually helped me quite a lot. Yeah. So thank you for that. But thank you for your time, Ben. You definitely have provided us with some food for thought. So thank you very much. So it's Assalamu alaikum from us here at the studio. Now it's over to our personal trainer with the fitness segment.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today we're going to talk about lordosis. Lordosis, or anterior pelvic tilt, is when you have a curvature or a sway inwards of the lower back. Now that's going to happen down here in your lumbar spine. The problem with lordosis is that if you leave it untreated, or if you don't do anything about it, it can cause a lot of lower back pain later on in life. So it's important that you start doing exercises and stretches to start combating that and getting back into a neutral position with your back. The thing that I'm going to show you today is a hip flexor stretch. A hip flexor stretch stretches out the hip flexors. They start in your thigh bone and they run all the way back and attach themselves to your pelvis and your lower spine. Now you're going to start in a kneeling position, and you're going to take your one foot and put it to the front, and then you're going to lean into that stretch as much as you can until you feel the stretch running all the way up and down your front thigh, and you're going to hold it here for at least 30 seconds. When you've finished the stretch on this side, you go back into your starting position and you do it on the other side as well. Good luck.